Graph this equation with center at -2, -3. Vertices, -2, 7, and -2, -13. And co-vertices, 4, -3, and -8, -3. Connect these points. We now have the graph of the ellipse with foci at -2, 5, and -2, -11. With principal axis at x equals -2. The length of the major axis is 20, 10 units up and 10 units down from the center, while the length of the minor axis is 12. And the directrices are y equals 9.5 and y equals -15.5. And this is now the graph of the ellipse with equation x plus 2 quantity squared over 36 plus y plus 3 squared over 100 equals 1. Another example, number 3, write the equation 4x squared minus 16x plus 9y squared minus 18y equals 11 in standard form. Since the equation of the ellipse is in general form, we need to complete the square of this equation in standard form. First, collect all x and y. Thus, we have 4x squared minus 16x and 9y squared minus 18y equals 11. Then, complete the square for x and y. But since we have here a numerical coefficient, we factor out 4, so that we only have x squared inside the parentheses before we complete the square. Here, we also need to divide this by 4 because we factor out positive 4. So negative 16 divide 4 is -4. Copy x. Similarly, since we have positive 9 as a numerical coefficient of y squared, we factor it out. So we have y squared minus 2y. Negative 18 divided by 9 is -2 equals 11. We can now complete the square in x. We take half the coefficient of x, which is -4, so -4 divided 2 is -2, and square it, so -2 squared is +4, plus complete the square in y. Take half of -2, which is -1, and square -1. -1 squared is +1, and this is equal to 11. And do not forget to add 16 and 9. You might wonder bakit 16 at 9 at hindi 4 and 1. Take note, we factored out 4, so we must not forget to multiply it to this value. So 4 times 4 is 16. Dito naman, we factored out 9. Multiply it by 1, kaya naging 9 dito, okay? We can now factor the expression on the left side, so we copy 4 and factor x squared minus 4x plus 4, which is x minus 2 quantity squared. Kinuha lang natin ang half ng coefficient ng x. While here we have 9 times y minus 1 quantity squared. Half of -2 is -1. And this is equal to 36. 11 plus 16 is 27, plus 9 is 36. Take note that the right-hand side of the standard equation of an ellipse must be equal to 1. Para maging 1 dito, we need to divide the equation by 36. We have x minus 2 quantity squared over 9. 4 over 36 is 1 over 9. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 36 divided by 4 is 9, plus y minus 1 quantity squared over 4. 9 over 36 is 1/4. 9 divided by 9 is 1, and 36 divided by 9 is 4, equals 1. And this is now the standard form of the equation of an ellipse. Let us have another example. Number 4. Find the standard equation of the ellipse with vertices at 2, -3, and 2, 5, and foci at 2, -2, and 2, 4. To find the standard equation of the ellipse, we need the center. Sa problem, walang center na given. but we have the vertices and the foci. Remember that the midpoint of the major axis is the center. So the center of an ellipse is the midpoint of the major axis, or equivalently, the midpoint of the segment joining the vertices. The vertices are 2, -3, and 2, 5. Thus, to find the center, we use the midpoint formula. We let 2, -3 be the first point, where x sub 1 is equal to 2 and y sub 1 equals -3, and 2, 5 be the second point, where x sub 2 is equal to 2 and y sub 2 is equal to 5. Substitute these values into the equation. We have 1/2 times x sub 1, which is 2, plus x sub 2, which is also 2. 2 plus 2 is 4, times 1 is 4/2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the x-coordinate is equal to 2. While the y-coordinate is 1/2 times y sub 1, which is -3, plus y sub 2, which is 5. -3 plus 5 is +2. Times 1 is 2/2, which is equal to 1. So the center is at 2, 1. Next, we need to identify if the major axis or principal axis is parallel to x-axis or y-axis. Remember that the principal axis or focal axis contains the vertices or the foci. If we're going to plot the vertices, 2, -3 is located here, while 2, 5 is located here. Connect these points and we can see that this is parallel to y-axis. And if the major axis is parallel to the y-axis, we use this equation. The denominator of the y² term is greater than the denominator of the x² term. Next, we need to find A and B. Remember, A represents the vertices, B the co-vertices, and C the foci. Since we have the coordinates of the vertices, we can solve for A. Recall that the length of the major axis is equal to 2a. Since we have here the major axis, we just count the distance from this point to this point. Thus, the distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units. So the length of the major axis is equal to 8. To solve for a, divide the equation by 2. Therefore, a is equal to 4. We can also verify that the center is at 2, 1, because the distance from this point to the center is 4 units, and the distance from the center to this point is also 4 units. Next, determine the value of b. However, wala tayong co-vertices, but we have the coordinates of the foci, 2, -2, and 2, 4. We can determine the value of c by finding its length, and the length of the foci is 2c. So the distance from this point to this point is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. To solve for c, divide the equation by 2. Therefore, c is equal to 3. 3 units up and 3 units down from the center. Since we already have a and c, we can now solve for b using the formula b squared is equal to a squared minus c squared, where a squared is equal to 16, 4 squared is 16, and c squared is 9. 3 raised to 2 is equal to 9. 16 minus 9 is 7. B squared is equal to 7. So b is equal to square root of 7. Therefore, we can now determine the standard equation of the ellipse with center at 2, 1, where h is equal to 2 and k is equal to 1. B squared is equal to 7. Square root of 7 raised to 2 is 7. And a squared is 16. 4 squared is 16. equals 1. And this is the standard equation of the ellipse.